He thought it was just another handyman job, until he discovered the truth about the woman who hired him. What happened next changed his life forever. Daniel Carter tightened his grip on his toolbox, staring up at the old cabin nestled deep in the woods. It was falling apart, the roof sagging, the windows cracked, the paint peeling. But for a man who had spent the last year struggling to provide for his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, this wasn't just another job. It was survival. The woman who had hired him, Claire Donovan, had reached out through a simple online ad. She said she needed the cabin restored before winter. No background, no fancy details, just a name. And when Daniel finally met her, she didn't look rich. Wearing an old flannel jeans and worn-out boots, Claire seemed like just another person trying to fix up a broken-down property. No designer handbags, no expensive jewelry, just a kind smile and a quiet demeanor. "Thank you for taking the job," she said warmly. Daniel nodded. "I appreciate the opportunity." What he didn't know, the woman standing in front of him wasn't just some cabin owner. She was one of the richest women in the country. And by the time he found out, his entire world would change. A job like no other. For the next 2 weeks, Daniel poured his heart into the cabin's restoration. He replaced the broken windows, patched up the roof, and sanded the worn wooden floors until they looked brand new. Every morning, Claire arrived with coffee, quietly watching him work. She never demanded anything, never rushed him, just thanked him every day. One afternoon, as Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead, Claire handed him a cold bottle of water. "You're really good at this," she said with a smile. Daniel chuckled. "I've been fixing things my whole life. Kind of comes with being a single dad." Claire's expression softened. "You have kids?" Daniel pulled out his phone, showing her a picture of Lily, his 6-year-old daughter with curly blonde hair and the brightest blue eyes. "She's my whole world," Claire smiled. "She's beautiful." Daniel exhaled, his voice quieter. "Things haven't been easy. Work's been tough, and I'm just trying to give her a life she deserves." Claire hesitated for a moment, like she wanted to say something. But instead, she just nodded. "I think you deserve a break," she said. "Take the rest of the day off. Bring Lily by tomorrow. She might like to see the cabin." Daniel frowned. "Are you sure?" Claire nodded. "I insist." Daniel smiled. "All right. I think she'd love that." Little did he know, by bringing Lily to the cabin the next day, he would discover the truth about Claire Donovan, and it would change everything. The truth comes out. The next morning, Daniel drove up to the cabin with Lily in the passenger seat. Her bright blue eyes sparkled as she stared at the towering trees around them. "Daddy, this place looks like a fairy tale," Daniel chuckled. "Just wait till you see the inside." When they arrived, Claire was already waiting on the porch. She knelt down, smiling warmly at Lily. "You must be Lily." Lily grinned. "Yep, Daddy says you have the coolest cabin ever." Claire laughed. "Well, thanks to your dad, it looks even better now." As Lily ran inside, marveling at the restored wooden beams and the crackling fireplace, Daniel turned to Claire. "You didn't have to invite us up here," he said. "I know you're paying me to work, the moment that changed everything." Claire shook her head. "Daniel, this isn't just about work." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Claire hesitated for a moment, then exhaled. It was time to tell the truth. "I haven't been completely honest with you." Daniel's stomach tightened. Was she about to fire him? Had he done something wrong? But then Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out a sleek black business card. She handed it to him. Daniel's eyes widened as he read the name. Claire Donovan, CEO of Donovan Enterprises. His breath caught. He knew that name. Claire Donovan wasn't just a random cabin owner. She was one of the wealthiest women in the country, a billionaire. Daniel blinked. Wait, This can't be real. You own Donovan Enterprises? Claire nodded. I do. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, completely stunned. Why didn't you tell me? Claire smiled softly. Because I wanted to see the kind of man you were. And now I know. Daniel swallowed hard. And what kind of man am I? Claire's gaze was steady. A hard-working father who never complains, who puts his daughter first, and who does his best even when life isn't fair. Daniel exhaled. I don't understand. Why does this matter to you? Claire took a deep breath. Because I know what it's like to struggle. Daniel stared at her. A billionaire who understood struggle. Claire continued. I wasn't born into money. I built everything from nothing, and when I see someone like you, someone who refuses to give up, I see myself. Daniel was still processing everything when Claire pulled out another envelope and handed it to him. Open it. Daniel hesitated, then carefully unfolded the paper inside. His hands shook as he read the words. Property deed, 1 Lakeview cabin. Daniel's voice cracked. Wait, this is... Claire smiled. The cabin is yours, Daniel. His heart stopped. Lily, who had been playing inside, ran up excitedly. Daddy, Daddy, can we stay here forever? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Because for the first time in years, he could say yes. And all because a billionaire had seen his worth, even when he couldn't see it himself. A new beginning. Daniel stood frozen, his hands still gripping the property deed. His heart pounded in his chest as he looked up at Claire. I can't accept this. His voice was barely a whisper. This is too much. Claire smiled softly. Daniel, you earned this. You didn't just fix a cabin. You proved what real hard work, integrity, and love for family look like. Daniel shook his head. But why would you do this for me? Claire exhaled, her gaze distant for a moment. Because once upon a time, someone gave me a second chance when I had nothing. And now, it's my turn to do the same for someone else. Lily giggled, twirling in the open space of the newly restored living room. Daddy, we have a cabin. We don't have to move all the time anymore. Daniel's throat tightened. He had spent years working job after job, struggling to afford rent, always worried about giving Lily a stable home. And now, he had one. Forever. Tears welled in his eyes as he turned back to Claire. How do I even thank you for this? Claire smiled. Just promise me one thing. Daniel swallowed hard. Anything. Claire's voice was gentle but firm. One day, when you're in a position to help someone the way I helped you, do it. Daniel nodded, his voice shaking. I promise. Claire held out her hand, and Daniel shook it, sealing the deal. Not just for the cabin, but for a new future. As he looked around, taking in the home that was now his, he realized something. This wasn't just about a house. This was about a fresh start, a chance to finally give Lily the life she deserved. And as the sun set over the cabin, Daniel knew. His struggles were finally over. Because kindness has a way of coming full circle. And now, it was his turn to build something great.